I tend to see this kind of partly through a security lens, and I covered Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, and I believe in the military toolbox. The military toolbox can do things that other toolboxes can't. But it has seemed to me that we've hugely overinvested in the military toolbox to try to address insecurity and civil conflict and terrorism, and that we've underinvested in the education, especially girls' education toolbox, and in the women's empowerment toolbox. And none of these are perfect, but I absolutely subscribe to. One of the things that struck me in Afghanistan is that where moms are a little more empowered, they keep their sons out of the Taliban. It's always struck me that the American generals sort of appreciated the way education would erode the strength of the Taliban. So you'd have some hard-bitten general who one moment is discussing airstrikes, and the next moment he's talking about how to get more girls in school in the district. And that has so much more power coming from him than it does from a bleeding heart New York Times journalist. And I look at for the cost of deploying one U.S. soldier abroad for 1 year, you can start about 20 schools and fund about 20 schools. This is something that is so cheap. And I look at Bangladesh versus Pakistan. Both used to be part of the same country, of course, in 1971. When Bangladesh became independent, it screwed up in lots of ways, but the one thing it did right was educate people, and especially educate girls. Bangladesh now actually has more girls in high school than it does boys. And that's one reason why you don't hear a lot about Bangladesh these days. Oman and Yemen. In the 1960s, they were right next door to each other. Oman in the 1960s was more backward than Yemen was. Then they began to educate people, including girls. That's one reason why you don't hear about Oman today. It's boring and stable, which is what we want. And, by all means, there are times when we need to use these very expensive military tools. But right now, we're using that toolbox in Syria, for example. Meanwhile, there are 3 million Syrian refugees around the country those kids are, in many cases, not getting any education whatsoever. Syrian kids have dropped down in education standards to the level of South Sudan. And to the extent we can address those needs so much more cheaply than we can address security issues another way, and empowering women for the same reason. I hope that these arguments will get more resonance, and they gradually have. The Pentagon is now a real advocate for girls' education, but it's still, that tends to be a little bit peripheral to the way we see the world. It tends to be seen as soft and fuzzy. And this is an argument that Swanee's made for years, that empowering women is a security issue. I think that's a lens that can maybe give us a little more leverage to make progress there.